Hi, classmates and Professor Stark. I'm Rebecca Davis. This is my presentation for empathy training, which I have titled Empathy, a Presentation. This is for Colorado Christian University's CMH 613. So let's dive in. One of the first prompts we have for this presentation is to identify some examples of empathy in the New Testament. And so I just picked two verses to show that really resonated with me. The first one is Hebrews 4:15, and it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he did not sin." And I think that this is really important to know that Jesus is the ultimate empathizer. So we know that Jesus has the perfect ability to empathize with us. And this is why we need to be looking to him for growing our empathy skills in now and in the future as counselors. The second verse is Luke 7:11 through 16, which says, "When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, 'Don't cry.'" And this is talking about the story of the widow who has lost her son, and God raised her son back to life. But as we can see, as it says that his heart went out to her and he said, "Don't cry," we can see him empathizing with her in this way, and feeling what she's feeling. And I think an important takeaway from this verse is to know that Jesus loves and wants to empathize with and comfort us. So he loves us and he wants to empathize with us. The next thing that we see, I picked the story of Paul and Silas in prison. We are looking at this story in Acts 16 through 40. And I just highlighted verse 34, which says, "The jailer brought them into his house and set a meal before them. He was filled with joy because he had come to believe God, he and his whole household." And this is, to give a little backstory, Paul and Silas were thrown in prison for casting a demon out of a woman, rightfully so, and the community was upset because the woman was using this demon to provide fortune telling for people and to make money. So they were upset that Paul and Silas were stopping the money making, and so they were thrown into prison. While they were in prison, they led the jailer to Christ. And so I think this is a really cool story because Paul and Silas were empathizing with the jailer despite having been thrown in jail and being kept in jail by this jailer. And I think that's really important when we show empathy to other people. Paul and Silas showed true empathy, therefore they were blessed and released from prison after this. And I just think that that is such a cool testament to how we relate to other people and how looking past what other people have done to us and still showing empathy. Next, we talk about how faith impacts our empathy, and I just noted two important aspects. The first is we are encouraged to be more like Christ, following his example when it comes to empathy for others. So this is the first way that my faith impacts my empathy, is that I'm encouraged by Christ's empathy, so that helps me to be more empathetic towards other people. And then the second thing is we draw on God's strength when we feel like we are unable to be empathetic towards someone. So that is a cool aspect of our faith, of our Christian faith, is that God gives us the strength that we wouldn't otherwise have as humans in our human nature. And lastly, we kind of look at how neuroscience and empathy kind of go together, and something that stood out to me was in our textbook, our neuroscience textbook. There are, according to the authors, there are multiple ways to enhance a therapist's capacity for empathy through the means of neuroscience, because they are so much connected, more than we even realize. And in their textbook, they state a few ways to do this, and as future counselors and future therapists, I think that these are really important guidelines to follow. So the first is actively imagine the experience of the client. which is basically, a core aspect of empathy is placing ourselves in their experience. The second is paying close attention to their own bodies, so to your own body as a counselor, to discern feelings or sensations that you might be feeling from the client or just from the experience or from the story that the client is telling, any of those. The third thing is listen carefully to the details of the client's experiences. So listening intently will help us to channel more of that empathy, because if we're just sitting there constantly thinking about what we're going to say or the opinions or advice we have, we're not going to be able to channel that empathy as well as we would if we're truly listening. The fourth thing is decenter from our own experiences. So the authors talk about decentering, so kind of just putting aside our own experiences for the time that we are interacting with our client, to be able to have even more empathy that we normally would without, decentering. So when we are so wrapped up in what's going on in our lives, that's just going to create this barrier to make us not as easily able to empathize. And then lastly, cultivating self-awareness and self-reflection as counselors. This is so, so, so important, even now, so that we can begin to practice that empathy with people around us now, but that we can learn and train ourselves to have even better empathy in the future with our future clients. And as future counselors, self-awareness and self-reflection is so important. And here is my reference page, and I am so thankful that you guys have tuned in, and this was a really fun presentation to make, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.